I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening on behalf of the Hudson School District's Board of Education. This evening's listening session regarding the proposed Rivercrest and EP Rock attendance boundary adjustment. If you haven't already, there are agendas over at the table. There's a proposal, a copy of the proposal, a series of question and answers, and also a pink request to speak to the board sheet. If you have already filled those out, I've collected some of them, but we are also continuing to collect them. Deborah Weisert will collect those and then bring them up to the podium. Following my brief introduction, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Nancy Sweet, District Deputy Director, Director of Human Resources, and Nancy will present a summary of the proposed attendance boundary adjustment, which will be followed by public comment regarding this summary. Ms. Sweet will also be giving a full report to the board at their regularly scheduled meeting this evening following this listening session. This is a listening session. Neither board members or administrators will be answering questions or responding to comments during this time. Priority to speak will be given to individuals with students who currently, or have students who currently attend Rivercrest and EP Rock, or parents who have preschool age children in the EP Rock and Rivercrest attendance areas. If you'd like to speak to the board, complete one of the pink forms, including name, address, and the elementary school your child is attending or would be attending. And as I said, Deborah will collect those. When you come up to the microphone, I would ask that you repeat your name and address and identify school. Also, I'm going to be calling people so that we have two people up in the chairs here at a time so that we can kind of move things a little bit quicker if you're already know that you're coming up next. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes this evening. Right now I think we're looking at about 2 minutes per person. Diane Radel will be the timer. There is this little gadget on the front that has some lights on it. When we have 30 seconds, oh, and Diane's got I want to also, just before I hand the microphone over to Ms. Sweet, to let you know how the board is moving forward with a decision. Tonight, again, the board will hear a report from Ms. Sweet on the proposed attendance boundary adjustment at their regular meeting immediately following this listening session. The board may request administration to provide them with additional information between tonight and when they make their decision in February. Around February 2nd, an additional meeting of EP Rock and Rivercrest parent representatives will be convened. And then on February 10th, the Board of Education will take action on the proposed attendance boundary adjustment. You are welcome to present additional concerns or questions to the board via email. Some of you may know that. Email address is connections@hudson.k12.wy.us, or they can be mailed directly to the district offices, 644 Breaky Drive, Hudson. And all of that is also on the district website. So without saying anything more, if you have forms that you would like, go ahead and bring those up to Deborah, and then I'll hand the microphone over to Ms. Sweet.
Okay, good evening. On December 9th of this year, the board approved a process to determine a multi-year boundary adjustment option between EP Rock and Rivercrest in order to relieve and manage the Rivercrest enrollment growth. Part of the approved process was a timeline and specific activities and steps, which included a listening session for the board prior to the regular January 13 meeting. And that brings us to this evening. In order to maximize the time available to all of you, and others. I'm only going to call your attention to the various maps of the proposed attendance boundary adjustment between Rivercrest and EP Rock, and then I'll just highlight the components of the proposal. I will provide more information during the report at the 7:30 board meeting. First of all, there is a close-up of the area of proposed boundary adjustment. It's projected in front of us, and board members would have a copy. And do others have a copy as well? Okay. Board members also have a map showing the proposed area within the Rivercrest attendance boundary and adjacent to the EP Rock attendance boundary. That's page 15 of your board material. And then additionally, in the material on the table, we've provided a map showing the entire Hudson School District Elementary School attendance boundaries and then the location of the school buildings. On page 13 and 14 of your board material is the proposal, and members of the audience would have copies of the proposal as well. I'm going to move down, skip the introduction part of it, and move right into the proposal. The first component of the proposal are the boundaries as projected, and the proposal would be to adjust the boundaries between Rivercrest and EP Rock to include EP Rock attendance boundary residents that are south of I-94, north of Hanley Road, west of Highway 35, and east of the Banterra commercial development. And then also included in the proposal are residences south of I-94, north of Stage Line Road, and east of Carmichael Road. Both of these areas are immediately adjacent to one another and adjacent to the whole neighborhood area is adjacent to the current EP Rock attendance boundary. The second component of the proposal would be to allow children from this attendance area who are attending Rivercrest prior to February 11th. Tracy just mentioned that the board in their timeline would be asked to act on this proposal or a variation of it on February 10th. So any student that might be enrolled at Rivercrest prior to February 11th, the day after, would have the option of continuing to attend Rivercrest until they enter middle school or otherwise move from the attendance area. Transportation would continue to be provided to and from Rivercrest School. The third part of the proposal is that parents of students attending Rivercrest, again prior to the February 11th, 2009 date, would also have the option of enrolling their children at EP Rock beginning with the start of the 2009-10 school year, and again the district would provide transportation to and from EP Rock School. A fourth part of the proposal is that preschool siblings of children attending Rivercrest prior to February 11th, when eligible, would be registered for kindergarten at EP Rock. The fifth part of the component is, again, effective February 11th, 2009. Any new residents of this attendance area in grades K-5 would be assigned to EP Rock, and that would be during this school year. And number 6, no further boundary exceptions would be granted to Rivercrest. This would include siblings of students already attending Rivercrest under an approved boundary exception. There are 6 students now attending from other attendance areas. They're in grades 1 through 3. There are a couple of other students who are in grade 5, and of course they'll be moving on to middle school. But we would grant no further boundary exceptions into Rivercrest. We would continue to grant boundary exceptions out, and we did grant this year a considerable number of boundary exceptions out of Rivercrest to other schools in the Hudson attendance area. And finally, the last component is that no non-resident open enrollment applications to Rivercrest would be approved, and we have not approved any non-resident open enrollment requests to Rivercrest, and we can't see ourselves doing that in the foreseeable future. So with that, I'll relinquish the podium here.
The first two people to come on up, I'll have Carl Olson and Sheila Engel. So Carl, if you would come forward, and then Sheila, if you would like to take a seat. Following Sheila will be Mary Y. Thank you. So Carl, go ahead. Again, name, address, and school.
Okay. Sorry. Hi, I'm Carl Olson. I live at 29 Windsor Wood Path. My son currently attends Rivercrest here. He's in first grade. Last year we were at EP Rock, and under the proposed adjustment, we'd be going back to EP Rock. I have two other little boys that will be starting school within the next 2 years, and obviously they would go to EP Rock under the new boundary change. Since we first got here to this school district, we've supported the school district before my son was even in school. I mean, any kid that comes by the house, we're buying, those football cards and all that kind of stuff, whether we use them or not. We bought the bricks that everybody wanted us to buy to help support, to help out. We supported the community playground. I mean, we're here. This is our community. Tonight at dinner, and I actually wanted him to come and talk, my 7-year-old, but he was a little too chicken. Obviously, he gets it from me. But he said, "What's the meeting for, Dad?" And I said, "Well, we have to go talk about a school change." I said, "To be honest with you," I said, "they're talking about, changing where you're going to go to school next year." And he said, "Oh, that sucks." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And he said, "Well, where would I go?" And I said, "Back to EP Rock." And he said, "But I don't want to go back there. I already was there. That means I'd have to make all new friends again." And I'm like, "Well, I know, but, we'll see what happens." And I said, "But you could probably stay there. It just means that, your brothers would end up going to EP Rock." And, unsolicited, he says, "But Dad, we've had so much fun together growing up. I want to be in the same school." I mean, it's this proposal. I mean, if you say there's a problem, I understand there's a problem, but somebody's got to be creative beyond just taking a group of people that have done everything for this school and want to be a part. I mean, if I have two kids in two schools, I can't be as involved as I am right now. Any field trip, one of us is there. We volunteer our time. We want to be a part of the school. We want to do these things. But if I have a son here and two kids at another school, it's going to be impossible to be everywhere at once. And I want to be an involved parent, and my wife wants to be an involved parent. So basically, your choice of choosing one or the other are both bad choices. And separating families and neighborhoods isn't a choice. Thanks.
Thank you. Sure.
Hi, my name is Sheila Engel, and I live at 104 East Canyon Drive in Red Cedar Canyon. I'd first like to take the opportunity to thank you for your time and hope that what you hear tonight you will take in with an open heart and an open mind. I'm the mother of two children, one of whom is currently attending Rivercrest as a first grader. Her experience so far with school has been very positive. She did attend EP Rock last year and took some time to adjust making the move to the new school. Most recently in the news of redoing the boundaries again has made me very upset, to say the least. I find myself in a situation of either pulling my daughter out of her current school or the potential to have two children not in attendance at the same elementary school. I would have to say that both options are preposterous to me. For one, a child is not something to just move about. I feel very strongly that she needs a sense of stability that can only come from the adults in her life making the correct decisions. One of those decisions was made to benefit her last year with the current boundaries by placing her in a school that is closer to home. Secondly, I believe that siblings should attend the same school for numerous reasons. The obvious one is the benefit to the parent. The second would be the stability and security that comes from younger siblings knowing that their older siblings are physically at the same school. Oh, if by chance to see them passing in the halls or if they're book buddies, in my mind this can only foster a positive educational experience for both children. Currently, the information that has been made available to me is that my children will not be able to benefit from having the same elementary school. However, as the years go by, it is my fear that this will not be the last boundary adjustment you will be asked to make. At this time, the decision is being made due to the potential growth that may or may not happen near Rivercrest. I ask you this one question. At what point, as the people of the Board of Education, did the children become secondary on your priority list? I ask this because you are fully aware of the 3 large neighborhoods that are located here on the south side of Hudson and the fact that they are heavily populated with children. So at what point did the unknown happen? You say that the boundaries need to be changed for potential growth. I say our children are here now and need to be thought of first and foremost. I also feel strongly that children who live in the same neighborhood be permitted to attend the same school. I feel this way because, as they say, it takes a village to raise a child. Our neighborhood is our village. Our children are growing up and forging relationships with each other. And again, this is something that makes a child's academic life much easier. So again, I'd like to thank you for your time and leave you with this one last thought. Dividing our families and our neighborhood is not an option. Please vote no.
Mary, before you start, Kevin Clements and Kim Bruner, if you would come forward.
Hello, my name is Mary Yakub. I live in 154 Dunbury Pass in Red Cedar Canyon. My daughter is to attend Rivercrest Elementary next year. I appreciate this opportunity to speak. I'm very frustrated in many things regarding this boundary proposal. Back in December of 2006, you sold this referendum to the taxpayers stating that, as it is now, 500 students are being bused across Highway 94 to attend school, and by building a new school, this would allow those students to attend a school closer to their homes. This referendum passed by 129 votes. I personally feel and know others feel misled. You solicited our votes and told the city that Rivercrest was to serve the south side of Hudson. Now you plan to bus the south side to a school across town. After the referendum passed, you hired and spent $35,000 of our taxpaying money to have an independent consultant draw boundary lines. So the question here is, what went wrong? Either you as a school board chose not to listen, or $35,000 went to waste. You sold this school to the city by saying it would start at a half-full capacity and would grow with the south side. Again, referring to your flyer, you knew that the south side already had 500 students, and Rivercrest was built to only handle 588. Why wouldn't the school have been built larger from the beginning? What options is the school board left with now? 1, build another school, unlikely. 2, add on to the existing school, presumably there is money budgeted for this. 3, you have 3 early childhood education classes at Rivercrest that have families attending from the entire city. Those can possibly be moved to EP Rock, which has 4 open classrooms and no early childhood education. Presently, 544 out of 588 students attend Rivercrest. There are 81 fifth graders graduating. That is 125 open spaces for next year. Supposedly, since there is unanticipated growth, you must have knowledge of at least more than 81 kindergarteners that will already be attending next year. You have plenty of options that do not involve families uprooting their children once again, options that allow neighborhood kids to attend the same school. It seems like a knee-jerk reaction to shift boundary lines 5 months after you drew them to account for growth that is best uncertain now, and who knows 5 to 10 years from now. As of now, 30% of the open acreage has not been zoned for residential development. Dividing our families and neighborhood is not an option. Please vote no.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Clemens, 64 Tribute Avenue here in Hudson. I'm currently the father of a third grader here at Rivercrest and 3 potential students as of yet to be determined where they will be going. I do want to say, as everyone has already kind of proclaimed, the last thing you want to do is split up your family room to room. Everybody knows about the kid who lived on one side of the street, kid on the other, different schools. Potentially could do that in my own house. Doesn't seem like a very feasible, family-friendly thing. But I understand that in this time, especially these economic times of trial, kind of have to make do with what we do. But I do consider you to really think about the family first. One of the proposals that when Rivercrest was proposed to the community was a green school. By double busing, I believe our carbon footprint, if you'll use that term, has just exceeded well past any thought that anybody had about a green school. I think it's self-defeating for a lot of the money that we put in for these projects to make this school kind of special in that way. I think that's something to take in regard as well. Also, I know that when they talked about a shift back to EP Rock due to class volume size, also with the concept that a lot of these students came from EP Rock, I actually came from Willow River because the boundaries at my neighborhood currently were set that way, but we accommodated the district because they were too full at the time we first came here. So potentially my next year, fourth grade child could be his third different elementary school. I think that's a little bit too much to move around, and I do thank you for your time, and please do vote no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you start, Mike Sukup and Marlo Welshens up, please.
Hi, my name is Kim Bruner. I live at 494 Carriage Lane. I'm actually going to refer to a handout that I did email to the email address that Tracy referred to earlier. One thing I want to point out, and I'm not sure if these numbers were published, I've also been a part of the advisory board that's been discussing this issue with the school administration, but we were told that there were approximately 130 students in public school that would be impacted by this change. So what I did is I took the current enrollments as of September at both EP Rock and Rivercrest, backed out the 130 and added the 130 as just kind of a worst case scenario. What happens? What happens is we go from a 92% capacity rate at Rivercrest and a 73% capacity rate at EP Rock, and we flip it to a 70% capacity rate at Rivercrest and a 95% capacity rate at EP Rock. I think you're hearing a lot of things here, but especially by including siblings of existing students, I think the transition of students from Rivercrest back to EP Rock is going to be larger than over the 3 years of what is maybe estimated since you are allowing the current students to stay. I think the impact of that sibling piece has been underestimated, and you're looking at just flip-flopping a problem from one elementary school to another. And if we're in a position a year from now where we're going to flip students right back to Rivercrest because the growth, as noted, and there's a lot of open growth for Rivercrest, but how much of it is being built on now? I think that leaves a lot of credibility issues to the administration and the board, and I'd like you to consider that as well. Something needs to be done, understood. I don't know if there's a way. My question back to the administration is, can we see different attendance, what are the students impacted by individual areas to try to cut this area down? Seems like we're impacting a greater number of students who are currently enrolled right now for future students who aren't here yet, and we're not sure what that growth is going to be. So understanding if there are changes that need to be made, there's not one, we're at one extreme, I feel. We've gone from one extreme to the other, and I would really like the board and administration to consider more of a middle ground, as well as more long-term options for getting fifth grades out of elementary and a new secondary building, which is also in here. Thank you.
Thank you. Just, if there are other people who have requests to speak, Deborah's in the back. If you want to hold up your pink sheet so she can grab that, go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Mike Sukup, 1624 Namacoggin in Hudson. I have a fourth grade son here at Rivercrest, and he is not affected by the boundary adjustment, but I am here to speak on behalf of many of the people at Rivercrest, as I am the president of the Rivercrest Parents Group. So some of these ideas are not mine. Ms. Bruner was just up here and I think presented some very good points. I'd like to expound on a couple of those. Number one, if you take her figures, it does just flip-flop the problem from Rivercrest to EP Rock. My question would be, if you could guarantee us that that would be the only boundary adjustment, then the numbers at EP Rock, I think, could be defended. But what do we do if a year from now or 2 years from now the boundary adjustment area grows and there is a tremendous amount of opportunity for growth there, or if the area in the Rivercrest school district grows south, which is where the growth is, and if you looked at the recent newspaper articles, this county is growing and will continue to grow even given the economic climate. You're going to have more students in Rivercrest and you would have to move the boundaries farther south. I also want to thank everyone for coming here. I've been very involved with Rivercrest in the school and the parent group, and we've tried to form a sense of community. I think that by making such a vast change without really taking a look at some of the detail as Kim has presented to you, and I do urge you to look at the figures. Kim happens to be my vice president on the board, and I don't argue with her numbers. Never. Never have, never will. We've tried to put together a sense of community here, and when you talk about separating families, separating siblings, as several of the members have discussed, I think that that has to be done very, very delicately. You know, we're talking about children here, we're talking about, you know, future adults, and we can't be jockeying them back and forth. And if adjustments do have to be made, I think that we have to take a very, very microcosmic look at how we do that. Let's not take the shotgun approach, which many people in this town believe was done when we built this school. Let's rifle it down and come up with the best solution for everyone. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marla Welshons. I live at 34 Founders Green. When I was offered a job at the University of Minnesota a year ago, I was thrilled to be able to move back home after living in Illinois for 16 years. Although we were concerned about the effects such an upheaval would have on our children, we believed that living closer to family was worth that temporary disruption. In May, we moved to Hudson, and our eldest daughter, Edie, started 3rd grade at Rivercrest this fall, where she has made many new friends. We are already very attached to Rivercrest. We have attended Daycroy this past summer. Edie loves being able to visit the camp. We bought Rivercrest clothing to support the parents' organization. We bought a brick in the gateway to commemorate our daughters being among the first children to attend the new school. And now you're telling me to tell my 4.5-year-old that she will not get to attend the school that her sister already goes to and she's psyched up to go to. Or I have to split them. And Edie has to go to a new school, the 3rd one in just a little over a year. Compounding this difficult decision is the fact that my niece is a Rivercrest 1st grader who went to EP Rock last year and is facing the same choice because my nephew is a preschooler. So any choice that we make will have to consider my sister and her family if we want our cousins to ride the buses and go to school together as well. I understand that you have real unanticipated problems to solve. I appreciate that, but understand that this proposal will have real anticipated effects on families. Please reconsider allowing preschoolers to attend with their siblings. Thank you.
Are there other requests to speak? Then, in conclusion, no others? Going once? Thank you, all of you, for coming forward. This process, this listening session, is very important to the board in making their decision come February 10th. The board wanted to have this opportunity to listen, to hear what people's concerns are. They invite you to continue to express those concerns through those, through the emails, through any written communications, phone calls. Administration, Ms. Sweet, Superintendent Mary Bowen-Egebrotten are here to listen to those concerns. As I said earlier, Ms. Sweet will make an additional report to the board this evening, and the board may have additional questions or requests for additional information for administration coming out of tonight's reports. Your comments and any additional information gained between now and February 10th will help the board make a decision that ultimately supports high expectations in learning for all of our students at EP Rock and Rivercrest. And it also will help make that decision will maximize the use of our facilities. The board will be convening their regularly scheduled meeting at 7:30 here in the multipurpose room. Again, thank you and have a good evening.
Is Michael here?
Yes.
Okay. I did not. I got my final opinion.
It's all good.
Good evening. I'll call the Hudson Board of Education regular meeting to order, Tuesday, January 13th. Welcome, everyone. We'll begin the meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd please stand. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll move on with the agenda. Board members have a copy of the agenda in front of them. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Motion by Brian.
Second.
Second by Lynn. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's approved. Next item, we have the approval of the December 9th regular and closed session Board of Education meeting minutes. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
Mr. President, I move for approval of the minutes.
Motion by Mark. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Brian. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the minutes are approved. I believe we do have some correspondence. Tom?
Yes, we have two pieces of correspondence. One from Gary Griswold regarding the acknowledgement of our sympathy card sent to him regarding the death of his wife, Sandy, and from the Len Bazell family regarding a loss of their loved one and an acknowledgement of our sympathy to them.
Okay, thanks, Tom, and thank you for those cards. Next item are the student staff community recognition. We have blue chip wrestler Cole Tobin. Sandy.
We are very excited this evening to have with us Cole Tobin and his coach and Stephanie DeVos, our athletic director. Cole just recently, he's a Hudson Raider wrestler. He just recently had his 100th win, and that is a big accomplishment not just in Hudson, but within the state of Wisconsin. So, Stephanie, tell us and share some of the good news.
Good evening. It is with great pleasure at this time I'd like to introduce to you Coach Hansen. Coach Hansen has been with us for 9 seasons in wrestling, 4 as an assistant, and the last 5 as a head. So I'm going to turn it over to Coach here.
Thanks, Mrs. DeVos. And thanks for having us come here to present an award to Cole Tobin. Cole Tobin has, this season, his senior season, reached a milestone in wrestling, and every sport has their milestones. Maybe it's running for 1,000 yards in football, or passing for 4,000 yards in a career. In wrestling, the milestone that everybody has recognized for many years is when you win 100 matches in your career. And in Hudson, only 9 people have ever accomplished that in the 50 years that we've had our program. And this year, Cole Tobin, on December 18th at the Rice Lake Dual Meet, won his 100th match. And so we'd like to present this plaque to him for his great achievement. Cole Tobin, congratulations on 100 wins.
Awesome.
I'd like to just say a couple more things about Cole if I can, because he's just an outstanding athlete and student at our high school. Before I do, I want to apologize for how I'm dressed. I am a Phi Ed teacher, and this is how we dress. So I actually am dressed up, is the point I'm trying to make. Cole has been very successful. He holds the 3 most important school records that we have. He has pinned more kids in a season than any other kid has ever pinned. He has won more matches in a season than any kid has ever won. And he has scored more team points than any kid who has ever scored team points in a season. He has scored the most ever. And those are what we consider to be our most important school records. He holds all 3 of them. And individually, of course, that goes along with the 100 wins. Of course, you're going to achieve a lot of school records and high numbers and things like that. But he's also achieved, last year he qualified for the state wrestling tournament. He's a sectional champion, and then went down to Madison and placed 4th at state. last year, and this year he is at one point was number 1 in the state, and at this point is number 2 in the state. Lost in double overtime to the number 1 guy, and that's how close he is to being the number 1 guy is double overtime. We absolutely believe that this year our goal is to be a state champion, and I guess if we don't reach that goal, we're going to land pretty high anyways. But more than that, I think the last thing I'll say about Cole and his accomplishments is, as the senior on our wrestling team, he will leave here without question being the class that was the most successful wrestling program ever. The 4 years that Cole has been in high school, combining those 4 seasons together, without question is the most successful group of seniors in the history of Hudson Wrestling. It's a very talented program, and he's the leader. And I think that's going to be something that, when he is all said and done, more important than the fact that he's pinned more kids than anybody else or has more team points than anybody else, the fact that he led this senior class to, his senior class, in fact, has never been beaten in the Big Rivers Conference. He does not know what it's like to have lost to. He's never lost to River Falls. It's an accomplishment that kids in Hudson have not achieved at this point, and he was a big part in making this happen. His team is currently ranked number 7 in the state, and Thursday night, will hopefully achieve their 4th conference championship in the 4 years that he's been part of it. So I just would like, if you get a chance, to say hi to Cole and congratulate him on many accomplishments. He's a tremendous wrestler and is planning on attending UW-Madison next year, where I also went to college. I am trying to remind him every day to make sure that that's where he goes to. Again, Cole, thanks a lot for all you do for us, and congratulations.
Congratulations, Cole. Thank you. Thank you, Coach Hansen, and I know you guys are having an outstanding year this year, so good luck.
Wow, that's wonderful.
We'll move on to Gateway donation.
I am very pleased to have the parent group officers of Rivercrest share information with you, an important announcement that they have. Mike Sukup, you've already met during the listening session. He's the president of the parent group. And Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm Mike Sukup, president of the Rivercrest Parents Group. I have with me Kim Bruner, who is our vice president, Jill Loomis, who is our secretary. Jerry Wookie, our treasurer, could not be here tonight, nor could Rachel Paul, who we have handling communications on the board. I have a letter here to Mary on the board, and I'd just like to read that. Dear Mary, the mission of the Rivercrest Parents Group, as stated, is to enhance the educational opportunities available to the students and staff at Rivercrest Elementary School through volunteer time and financial support, while reinforcing the community and environmental focus of the school district. In November of 2008, the Rivercrest Parents Group was approached by the Hudson School Board to contribute to the Gateway project. The Gateway effectively and safely connects Rivercrest with the YMCA's Camp St. Croix and was not part of the full funding for the school proper. The Rivercrest Parents Group recognizes the Gateway's purpose and the multitude of unique opportunities Camp St. Croix is able to afford Rivercrest students now and for many years to come. I am therefore pleased to announce that at our meeting in December, the Rivercrest Parents Group approved a contribution of $15,000 for the Gateway project. The Rivercrest Parents Group is hopeful that our strong show of support will foster future contributions to the Gateway from both the business and the private sector. We are grateful to our group members and those who support the efforts which make this contribution possible. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mike, and thanks to the parent group.
Mary?
I would like to recognize these officers that you see before you. They certainly have taken a leadership role. I know board members Tom Holland and Dan Chernahoy met with the parent group to ask that they make a contribution to the Gateway. And the officers of the parent group have really took this on and helped provide information to the rest of the parent group, took comments and listened to comments of all of the parents that wished to respond, and then led the group to this level of donation that certainly is a very significant and important donation to the Gateway, and we really appreciate your support of that Gateway to Camp St. Croix and our partnership. With their donation, certainly we've made a lot of progress, and this donation helps. The total amount that we need to raise has been adjusted based on bills coming in, actual bills being paid, and the total is now $111,000. The amount we've raised, that includes the $15,000 from the Rivercrest Parent Group, is $83,202, and what we have remaining is $27,698. So I believe we've really made progress on our goal, and with this donation, we, I believe, can complete the rest of the donations and put it to rest. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's a wonderful gift. Okay, the next item on the agenda are comments to the Board of Education from Michael Zuhl. Michael? Thanks for coming.
Hi, my name is Michael Zeal. As you all know, I was involved in the vandalizing of several high schools my senior year in high school. Ever since the incident, I have felt terrible about my involvement and my actions with the so-called prank. Looking back on it all, I have learned that it was not a prank in anyone else's eyes, nor is it in mine now. I am sorry for the negative impact it had on the community, and I am sorry for the embarrassment it has caused. While taking part in the act, I never really thought about how others would feel or how others would react. I took part in the prank, putting myself before others, and I've learned this is no way to live life. I am sorry for the anger this situation has brought about. During my high school, I would have liked to consider myself a role model. I was involved in many community efforts to bring happiness to others and help out in any way I could. I took part in athletics and learned leadership from that as well. After taking part in the vandalism, I felt as though I'd let all the people down who looked up to me. I dwell about the image the community has on me and others who were involved, and wish we could all go back and keep our respectable image. I do not in any way believe that what we did was right, nor do I believe it is something to look past. I am deeply sorry for what I have done, and my wish is that in time the communities I betrayed will forgive my actions of youthfulness and realize how much I have grown since. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Michael. As you know, a number of your other friends, have come before the board here and spoken similarly to your remarks. I'm pleased that you decided to come in person to say those remarks for us. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Superintendent's report. Mary?
Well, again, I am pleased. As you know, we have hired a new Director of Student Services effective July 1, 2009, to carry on Dr. Barbara Poon's work in Student Services. And that's Corey McIntyre, who I'd like to introduce to you at this point. Corey is the current Director of Student Support Services at the Rochester Public Schools. And he has spent part of the afternoon with Dr. Rapoon and Sandy Kovac and Peg Shoemaker, starting to plan for next year. And even though we had bitter cold and we gave him the out to come another board meeting, he chose to make the trek to Hudson from Rochester today so that he could be with us this evening. Corey?
Well, thank you, Superintendent, members of the board, and the administrative team. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you a little bit tonight and just make a few comments. It was really not that hard to get here tonight, but I'm still here after meeting with the staff already, so that's a good sign. So just a few comments. My wife and I are really excited about coming this way, and as you know, we have twin daughters that are 6-month-olds now, and we're living hour to hour right now. So, but we're very excited about coming up. Hudson, in my mind, has a very strong tradition and a very excellent reputation with a very hardworking staff, strong programs, excellent support programs, strong academic programs, and extracurriculars. Just an excellent reputation. I keep hearing it and witness it today. The hardworking staff, the committed staff to this district. I'm very impressed with the vision and the long-term strategic plan for the district. That's very impressive. That'll lay the foundation for years to come. And I'm also very impressed with the partnerships with the community, private sector, and parents. That's such a vital part of the work we do. And all those pieces were just very much a strong factor in my decision to accept the position here. I'm just very excited to become a member of the team and work really hard side by side with such a strong group of people. So I'm just going on and on here, but there's so many good things to say. So I'm very much looking forward to joining the team, even though it's 6 months away. It does give us plenty of time to try to plan a transition with the new family. So I appreciate that opportunity. So thanks again for letting me come and address you tonight, and I look forward to meeting all of you more in a more personal manner as my time gets closer. And I'm going to keep bugging Barb here in the months to come, I think, with lots of questions. So thanks again. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know coming from Rochester, a very strong school district down here, it had to be sort of a difficult choice, but we're certainly excited to have you join us. Thanks again. Board of Education candidates, Mary?
As you know, on April 7th, we have an election for 3 seats on the Board of Education, 3-year terms, and our 3 incumbents are running for those seats, and they are running unopposed for the seats on the board. And we have drawn names to be on the ballot, and those names will be in this order: Barb Van Lunen, Brian Bell, and Tom Holland. So congratulations to them and thank you so much for wanting to continue your service to the Board of Education. And we look forward to that vote on April 7th.
Very good. I'm glad you guys decided to run.
Yeah.
Okay, Mary?
All right, moving on to open enrollment. Open enrollment is an opportunity for parents throughout the state of Wisconsin to have their children, or apply to have their children attend another district. And so this isn't just open enrollment for the Hudson School District, it is also for all the school districts in the state of Wisconsin. And open enrollment is open from February 2nd through the 20th. And this is the one window through the entire year that parents can apply to have their students attend another school district. It is the only time in the whole year that parents can do this. They cannot do this until February 2nd, and after February 20th, it's no longer available as an option to them. So they can apply online. In fact, that is recommended by the Department of Public Instruction. We also have information on our website and a link to the Department of Public Instruction site that has more information about open enrollment and some of the regulation. Diane Radel, my assistant and the board secretary, also is very knowledgeable about open enrollment. Parents can obtain forms in our office as well from Diane, and she can answer questions and fields a lot of those during this time of the year.
Okay, any questions for Mary? If not, we'll move on to reports. Go on to the Rivercrest and EP Rock boundary adjustment. Many of you were here earlier during the listening session that we had prior to the board meeting now. And so, Nancy?
Okay, as I make this report, I'd like the board to refer to pages 13 through 16 in your board material. Just last year, this administration and this board undertook a comprehensive district-wide change in elementary attendance boundaries. We did this in anticipation of the opening of a new school, Rivercrest. We employed expert consultation from demographers, planners, and boundary managers, and used specially designed software. We held many meetings with parents. We explored additional data sources because of those meetings, and then over the process, some adjustments were made by the administration and ultimately also by the board. We wished it would have worked out perfectly. For the most part, it has. Class sizes are within guidelines across the elementary district, with the exception of just a handful of classrooms that have 1 or 2 additional students. School space across the elementary district is no longer crowded. Classroom instruction is occurring in regular size classrooms, and there is room for future enrollment growth. The exception to our boundary planning is Rivercrest, which grew within the first few months at a significant and unanticipated rate and is now 92% of capacity, with 24 of the 24 classrooms utilized. Boundary planning is not a perfect science. The experts will testify to that, all of them. There are a number of variables that cannot be predicted with the level of confidence all of us would hope for. These variables are several, but include certainly development, where, when, how fast. We knew from the consultation that we were provided last year that the 3 areas of our district with the most development potential were Hudson Prairie, Holton, and Rivercrest. And in fact, they hold approximately 90% of the open land that might possibly be developed someday. And multiple sources suggested to us that the Hudson Prairie area actually would have the most imminent development. And of course, it turned out not to be true. It is Rivercrest. But there's still development potential in the Hudson Prairie area, and just a whole lot of development potential in the Holton area, subject to something else that we don't have control over, and that would be the bridge. Reliable preschool data is also not available. We have grown beyond, and I've been here long enough to remember the door-to-door census that used to be taken. We're too big for that at this time. The mail-ins are, and again from expert consultation, the mail-ins are not reliable enough. People don't necessarily return them, and we have a growing district. Our data, and you've heard several of us speak to this, is a point in time. It's very important for us always to give you the date at which the data was taken, because it changes every day, and over a short period of time can change quite substantially, and that's particularly true with enrollment. We have the trend is growth for sure, but we have children and families moving in and moving out, and also moving regularly between our 6 enrollment, our 6 elementary boundaries. Even though the preschool data is not available and not reliable, we did use a statistical projection, and we came very close in 5 of our 6 elementaries. We were very close, and the only exception to that is Rivercrest, which enrolled more than 30 students in kindergarten than we had anticipated. You know, that's a class or more of kids. You know, that's a significant number. We certainly anticipated a certain number, but not the over 30 that ended up. And they just kept enrolling. You know, it wasn't all at kindergarten roundup, you know, but they just kept enrolling. And of course now, as you know, we have 5 sections of kindergarten in Rivercrest, which was really built to be a 4-section school at each grade level. There's also this variable of attraction to a new school, and that's also intangible. We don't necessarily have control over that. It's hard to predict. There has been, and we knew there would be, but there has been more attraction, and maybe even marketing outside of our domain for residency in this attendance area. And that would certainly be another contributing factor beyond the variables that could be predicted. The previous administration and a previous board, a few years after changing boundaries and adding Hudson Prairie, when Hudson Prairie opened, approximately 10 years ago now, it was just a few years after that, 2 or 3, when we began to be concerned about enrollment growth. And the enrollment growth that we were concerned about was at Rock. And the solution for that was to take an area south of I-94 toward the west, and there were approximately 50 children there and their families, and we redistricted and we moved those 50 children and their families and anyone that might move into that area or might be born there later to North Hudson. And that endured for 5 years approximately. And then into that particular redistricting, and up until the time of the opening of Rivercrest, grade levels were capped. Certain classrooms across the district were capped. And so people moving into Hudson, into a particular attendance area and coming to enroll their children, to register them, were sometimes the particular grade level was full. And so they were enrolled in another of our schools where space was available. And sometimes those families came with other children. And if they did, we gave them a choice. They could enroll the child in the attendance area where there was space, their own attendance area, and the other child would go to another school where the capping didn't exist. And parents did both. The experience for us was that in most cases they chose to have the children attend school together. And at the listening session you heard how it's important to parents. You heard that. And occasionally the children were split and the parents made that decision. And we transported them wherever they decided to go. We regret deeply every time we have to do boundary changes or any other smaller adjustments that need to be made. And as in the past, decisions are made based on the information that we have available at the time. And we realize that not everyone will be happy with the decision, or in this case, the proposal that's being made. And we anticipate that there will be criticism because the decisions are so personally impacting a family. So we understand that, and we feel bad about that, actually. But we have a larger responsibility, and that's to be proactive as we see the needs and the problems emerge. We can't avoid, bringing it up and bringing it to you because it is a difficult process, and because there are families unhappy and impacted by it. It would actually be a much bigger problem if we failed to bring it forward and the problem just got bigger. And then we had to deal with it in some bigger way that might affect a whole lot more people. And so that's part of our responsibility. And the other is to propose solutions that will manage enrollment growth across the district and in any particular attendance area where we see the need, and to provide equity of educational opportunity in all of our schools, and for our taxpayers to maximize the use of our facilities for all of our taxpayers. So continued growth, if we have continued growth, then we anticipate we will have continued growth. That's going to govern our need to make adjustments in the future. And we should anticipate large and small adjustments in the future if our goal is to provide educational equity across the district and to manage that as responsibly as we can, and if one of our goals is also to use all of our facilities to the maximum potential that we can. So those are my opening remarks. The overview, the process is on page 16. You're familiar with it. You approved it as proposed and having been considered earlier by the Governance and Policy Committee. And that was approved by you on December 9th. And you asked us and approved the guidelines and criteria having to do with boundary adjustment, considering our guidelines for class sizes, considering our building capacities and our enrollments, anticipating new growth, adhering to our policies, and there are laws about student transportation, and to the extent possible to continue to balance population characteristics and to be cost efficient as possible. And the timeline beginning in November, we're in the middle at this point. January 13th, we anticipated a listening session tonight, and we did hear from several parents, actually, Rivercrest parents, and now you're hearing the proposal tonight, with anticipation that you would act on this proposal or some variation of it on February 10th. The proposal is on page 1314. I spoke to the components of the proposal at the listening session. By way of introduction, I think I've included some of that in my remarks just moments ago. The only thing I would add to that is we have a need for enrollment space for children at Rivercrest, and EP Rock has room for those children. You can see in the proposal all of the elementary schools and our classroom utilization. Right now, Rivercrest is utilizing 24 of 24 of their classrooms, and Rock is utilizing 20 of 24. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not being used, but they're not being used for a section of a regular classroom section. And Rock has a capacity of 588. The current enrollment as of December 18th, 2008 was 434, as compared to the capacity of 588. And Rivercrest, again, as of that same date, with a similar capacity of 588, on the 18th of December had 541 students, 92% capacity. Another variable that we've considered, and you see that presented in the chart, is the open acreage, or the just the percentage, the estimated percentage of open land that could be developed. And there is a real big difference between Rock, which is about 5%, and Rivercrest at 30%. Still doesn't tell us how rapidly it will continue to be developed, or whether Hudson Prairie, who has 10, will all of a sudden, blossom, or if the bridge will be built or something like that. But you can see the relative possibility there, and that does impact how comfortable we might be with a population closer to capacity than not. For example, Willow River is close to capacity, has room. and has a large class size moving through, and will drop down to 19 classrooms instead of 18 next year. But their potential for new development is very small. So we can feel more comfortable with that, we believe. It's important to say, too, that with the continued elementary student population growth, and even with hopefully a multi-year boundary adjustment, again, Rivercrest, we should expect that eventually it would be over-enrolled due to the attraction of the new school, perhaps, same variables affecting us now, and the open area acreage. We'd like to slow that down, and we'd like to use space in one of our other facilities. If you look at the other buildings, with the exception of Rock, we believe there's not sufficient space given their current enrollments, their class utilizations, percentage of capacity, and in some cases their open acreage. We would not propose to move children from here to a building different than Rock. So the proposal has a number of points to it. There's a map. This map in particular shows in green shows the current attendance boundaries for Rivercrest, and the darker area shows the area adjacent to the current EP Rock boundaries that are presently proposed for inclusion in the EP Rock boundaries. To clarify, though, this proposal, just to make sure everyone understands this, the board as well as the public, the current students that are in Rivercrest, kindergarten through grade 4, we're taking grade 5 off because they're going to go to middle school next year, but K through 4, there's approximately 115, again, as of a certain date, and they would be allowed to stay. Parents can choose. They can stay at Rivercrest. They can continue to finish at Rivercrest. And there's about 90 families, and 23 of them, by our count, have more than one child at Rivercrest. So there's 115 students. There's 90 families affected, and less than a fourth of them approximately have more than one child at Rivercrest right now. It's interesting when parents register their children at any of our schools, the registration form allows for them to identify other children, older and younger, and some do and some don't. But those that do, we have looked, and there are 58 preschool children who are part of this attendance area, and so that's not a complete number because that's only what we know from the registrations. But there are 58, and there are about 15 of them who are by age eligible for kindergarten next year. We did take a look at it, and it would be unlikely that all of these families with preschool children entering the 15, and maybe not all 15 will enter kindergarten either, but if they did, and if their families chose to have them all go to Rock, Rock would be able to accommodate the extra kindergarten kids as well as the additional older children without actually an addition to the staffing, with the exception of probably a section of kindergarten. There are only 3 sections of kindergarten at Rock. It's a 4-section school. There's room for another section. There's 5 sections here. If this number here were to diminish, we possibly could transfer a teacher to Rock. We need to try to figure out how to look further at this preschool population, because we've heard this is really the major concern and theme, really, that the parents have spoken to us about tonight, and they've been writing to us too. You've gotten all the all the different emails that they've been sending to Tracy through connections, and it's really one of the biggest, if not the biggest, point. But that's what I know so far about our preschool population and the impact. It's big, and if we were to just, admit all, and it might not do what we need, what needs to be done. But we'll look at it area by area. We'll do what we can to probe it further if that's something that you would like us also to look at. Of course, our proposal also indicates that any new residents as of February 11th, that'd be after your decision, would be assigned to Rock. We would make no further boundary exceptions. We made only a very small number to begin with. We actually boundary accepted more kids out of Rivercrest than we allowed in, and only in those grade levels where there was ample or appeared to be ample space. And there would be remaining next year, if they continued to live here or didn't opt to go somewhere else, six students. So it's a fairly minimal impact, but we would propose as part of this plan not to accept any further boundary exceptions. We never did admit any non-resident open enrollment students, and we would plan not to do that, approve any in the foreseeable future. The proposal meets the criteria. Given the enrollment, there is sufficient space at Rock to absorb the number of students over time, and it would be over time. We do not believe that it would be accurate to assume that the parents of all 115 children would next year opt for Rock. It is just not a reasonable assumption. But we do expect that over time there would be replacements of children and new residents and other factors. The population characteristics of moving this area there would not affect Rivercrest, and the population characteristics would become more balanced at EP Rock. Nothing's terribly out of balance, I want you to know that, but we do keep an eye on that. Student transportation costs are minimized. If you look at the map, you can see, and you do have a map. Do you want to show the larger map maybe? Because it does give you shows the whole attendance area, shows you the location of our buildings, and you can see how close to Rock this particular area is. So there's Rock, and then there's Rivercrest. Could hardly get too much closer, and of course we did look at that, and we looked at all the way out, and here other areas as well. And the further out you go, the more challenged the district is in terms of timely transport and also the cost of transportation. And that was one of the criteria that you asked us to look at. So those are my closing comments, unless Mary would like to add anything. I would take your suggestions on things we should look at, any comments you'd like to make.
I think the one point that just needs to be reiterated, and Nancy certainly spoke to this, and certainly is a concern of parents, and we can all understand why. But it's being said that the district is splitting families. And really the district is honoring parent choice. And so in a traditional way of developing boundaries, we would determine the area and shift all of the students in that area to the other school. And that would be EP Rock. And so because of the plan we have started with parent choice for the short-term plan that Nancy described earlier, we felt that it was important in this plan as well to give parent choice to not only those parents and families who have all of their elementary children here, and those to stay here instead of being shifted. And then also for our families that have children here and have incoming preschoolers, to have them have the choice of whether the whole family goes to EP Rock, as it would in a traditional plan, or whether they want to keep a child who has started here to stay at Rivercrest. So I know this is very difficult for families. Nancy spoke quite a bit about that. But we are trying to honor parent choice in the way this has been designed.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Nancy. I'll open it up to board members here. There's a lot of information that you have before you. We've had the listening sessions. Brian, do you want to start off?
That'd be great. Lots of listening. I'd like to talk a little bit. So just a couple of questions. What's the current class size of the kindergarten classes in Rivercrest? I got about 4 questions, just a little fact-finding, and then...
She does have it. She just has lots of information.
At Rivercrest.
This on again here. At Rivercrest, we have 5 sections of kindergarten, 22, 22, 16, 22, 16. And that resulted from the, we originally planned 4 sections, and the growth, the significant growth in that area caused us to request a 5th, and there's a bit of a very team teaching sort of thing going on there.
Okay, so Rivercrest and Hudson Prairie are about the same capacity, correct?
Yes.
So, and how large did Hudson Prairie get before we built Rivercrest? How many students were in there? Was it like 650?
6 something, Mary.
Do you remember?
I don't remember exactly.
We'll
it certainly was well over 600.
Was it like 650, or was it that large? Don't know. Okay.
But we'll write it down and we'll let you know.
Okay. And then, do we have any idea? I think we mentioned this, that we talk about 10% open acreage in the Hudson Prairie area and 30% of Rivercrest. Do we know how much of that 30% is zoned for, either single-family home or multi-family home? Is it?
I think that would be another level of investigation, and it is something that we've thought about relative to the proposed area.
Okay, so that'd be something that would be good to get.
Brian, along with that, I think it might be worthwhile, since the other affected school here is EP Rock, that we also investigate that too.
Okay.
And also, while you're doing it, I would like to know also Hudson Prairie. Okay. Just a point is, Hudson Prairie is 87% at capacity. Rivercrest is 92. It's only 5% difference, right? So it looks like there's a bigger opportunity for enrollment in Rivercrest because of that 30%, but it'd be good to know how much of that's zoned for. Yep. Okay. Let me just keep going. I got 2 more, then I'll relinquish the mic. The early childhood special ed at Rivercrest. Is there any, is there any reason why that couldn't be moved to EP Rock?
Well, I could give an opinion on that. And the reason, I'll give a reason and an opinion. The reason would be that that part of the building was specially designed. It was created, architecturally designed and created and equipped specifically for early childhood special education. And it's not figured into the 588. It's not designed like 4 sections of first grade or whatever.
I'm not advocating right now that we move it. I'm just trying to get the facts. So is there any reason why we couldn't modify a room at EP Rock to have the same or similar functionality?
Well, you need a whole lot more than a room. Maybe Barbara could speak to that.
I'm trying to understand it. So.
Yeah.
In addition to the instructional space...
Can you get closer?
Okay. In addition to the instructional space, early childhood has needs usually in occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language, and those additional personnel and or space is not likely in another building at this point in time.
It's a couple classrooms as well.
The other issue we would have beyond moving those children and supporting their needs, their particular needs, and the amount of space that they really need because of the customized program and their learning needs, is if we look at EP Rock, they need 4 sections per grade level. Those 24 classrooms are really part of that 4 sections per grade level. If we take that out of there, their number of classrooms doesn't make any sense anymore, because you can't move the children through each grade level because we won't have 4 classrooms per grade level anymore.
Okay, I'm just looking at, it looks like there's 20 to 24 classrooms being used at EP Rock right now.
4 classrooms, yes.
Because we are at 74% capacity, but if we were moving students through, and we expect that there is fluctuation, we wouldn't have those classrooms to add on. So, for example, if you'd look at our kindergarten class at Rivercrest, we have 5 sections, and we really don't have a classroom for those 5 sections. There are fluctuations in grade levels. We do need to have the 4 sections for each grade level. In fact, Nancy, aren't there some grade levels that already have 4 sections at Rock?
Yes. Second grade, first grade and second grade. But there's room for additional kids.
I'm just trying to understand.
Yep,
So, is there anything right now that saying that we couldn't move the early childhood ed to EP Rock? I mean, could we use those 4 classrooms for that? Right now, as it is right now, with 74% enrollment capacity.
I think we need to explore that issue further, and we will get back to you with more specifics, because you're asking for facts that we'd like to make sure that are correct.
By the way, the conversations, I understand it. So,
anything else, Brian? The red light's on.
These are all questions you guys are going to ask anyways. I'm just doing it for you.
No.
All right.
Keep going.
I will relinquish the mic at this time.
Okay. Other board members. Barb?
Yeah. Nancy, you did a nice job in your presentation of talking about how we would have the capacity at EP Rock, not only for the 115 students, granted they won't all choose to go there, but also for whatever siblings that they had. Although when you look at the numbers, that does appear to put pressure on the Rock percentage enrollment capacity. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about that. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that everyone decided to go to Rock along with all the siblings, that would be the approximately 115 current students for Rivercrest, plus the siblings that we're aware of, which total about 58.
Well, let me clarify what I was calculating there. I was only calculating if the 15 preschool children that parents have indicated and given us their birth dates who would be eligible for kindergarten, if all 15 of them...
The ones coming in for kindergarten.
Yeah, just those, and then their siblings, and that's actually about 32. Now, again, it's unreasonable probably to assume that all of the parents would choose to send all of the children to Rock, but if they did, it would be the 15 plus 17, and most of the 17 are at the upper grade levels, actually, siblings, and there would be room there without adding staff. But I would not suggest, in fact, I think it's the opposite issue, that Rock could handle right now all 58 plus all the siblings. Right. And and again, it's unreasonable to think that they would all be voluntarily would go to Rock at this time. Many will choose to stay at Rivercrest.
So, and the reason for my asking the question is sort of the obvious is, we're not in a position where we wanted to be having to review boundary boundaries a year after we just did this, and so I just want to make sure that we're really clear amongst the board members before we make the decision in February, so that we're not sitting here again a year from now, at least to the extent that we had information available that would have helped us modify our thinking about the boundary adjustments. So I'm looking for some perhaps what I'm looking for, Nancy, is some worst case scenarios that said, what if everyone chose to go with all of the siblings that might come through the system in the next year or two? What does that do to Rock?
Would choose to go or stay.
Go or stay,
If that were the adjustment.
Worst case on both sides.
Okay.
Nancy, again, tagging onto that question, how comfortable are you about the numbers? I mean, I think some of the information you're relying on is information that's been volunteered versus us actually seeking out.
Relative to preschool, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah.
So is that would that be something for us to research to get a better finger on that?
I think it would be
because that could further inflate one way or another.
I think it would be worth. This is information read from actual registrations of currently enrolled children. And I think it would be worth, again, given the priority concern expressed by the parents, I think it'd be worth contacting and verifying this information. And there could be even more because they would not have been required to have given that information to us. So we would talk to all of them.
Can I
and find out if there's additional.
Okay, Cindy.
Yeah, because the question that you're asking, I think, is an important one, and that not just in terms of how many families are really affected by this potential splitting up of their siblings, but it's important, I think, to consider the age splits, because if you've got kids who are in third grade with 1 and 2 year olds, they may already be out of Rivercrest before those preschoolers would come into the district. So I think that's one thing we need to know. But also I think it's important for us to get a handle on how many actual families, regardless of the volunteer information that we got, would be affected. And I was thinking maybe this would be an area where the parent group could help us get better information, because they seem to be a group that is really connected, and there seems to be a culture here of parents participating in this organization. I think it's really important that that we draw on resources like that. So if there's a way that maybe they could help us figure that out, we should take advantage of that.
Okay, thank you.
And they might also be able to help us figure out how many preschoolers who do not have siblings currently enrolled are really in this area.
Yeah, we don't know that.
Those are two big questions, and they might be in a better position to have the resources to help us figure that out.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. Other board members?
I have some other.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I guess there's a couple of observations and some questions. I think that it really is an important point, huge point, that a large number of the kids in the Rivercrest, I mean, everybody really except the kindergartners at Rivercrest, have already changed schools once. And I think it's really important for us, because we talked about the impact then of having students have to be changing schools multiple times in their elementary career, and we all agreed that was a very undesirable thing. And I think that we also have all agreed in the past that splitting siblings between schools is also a really undesirable thing. And so I guess I have to say that while these are really two evils in my mind, they're both undesirable. And we can say to ourselves that we're giving parents a choice, but I think this is a not choice. This is really, it's unfair to say that we're supporting parent choice when we're giving these two really undesirable choices. So I guess I want to say that.
Cindy,
that doesn't mean we wouldn't do it.
Can I, those are good points. I guess the purpose of this discussion is there anything, are you wanting to direct?
A question, yes,
okay.
And that's what's coming.
Good.
So feeling the way I do about that doesn't mean it isn't what we're finally left with. So, I mean, I recognize that we do want to exhaust other options. And so there are a couple of things that I would like to know more about. One thing is that we've heard only from people who oppose this proposal. And we're left to assume that there is some contingency of people who would support this proposal. Parents who are unhappy with the class sizes, teachers who are having to deal with resource issues that are difficult. There have to be somebody beyond administration who are in support of this proposal. And I guess I would like to hear from that group of people. I'd like to know who's out there who isn't. And then I guess the second question that I'd like to know a little bit more about is there was one parent earlier today who said that suggested that maybe looking at the area under consideration in more microscopic situation might give us more information, and in which case I would ask is there a phasing that could be an option that we haven't considered? I don't know what that would look like, but is some phase in of something like this an opportunity? So like I said, I don't have any idea what that might look like, but we should look for that. And then the other question that I have it's going to be difficult. It's all going to be a sort of a judgment call. But when we have a parent group that comes together and produces a $15,000 donation for something on this site, now, of course, they're not buying our vote with a $15,000 donation. That certainly isn't the case. But what it suggests to me is that there is a very strong culture that is developing in this building. And I think that we have to consider what the impact of a decision, whatever the decision is that we would make about this, how that would impact the culture that's developing in this building. And I guess I don't want to necessarily hear from the parent group about that or from the teachers about that. What I'd like to hear is best practices and what do we know about that from the literature in the field and from people who have expertise in the area of developing student culture. I think that would be the place for us to get the most objective information. So if we can find something, I don't know what's out there, but I would really appreciate that. And those are the questions that I have.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. Lynn or Tom, Mark, any comments?
In this process, I mean, was there counsel given by other parents from this school regarding this, the resolution that you came to, or the proposal that you came to?
We have a parent advisory group that consists of the officers of the parent organizations for Rivercrest and EP Rock. We've met twice. We're scheduled again to meet February 2nd between this meeting and the meeting where you'll be asked to take action. In addition to myself, Tracy, Habi, Shalene, and the two principals from Rock and Rivercrest have been part of that process. And the first meeting, we talked about the process itself, and that proposal of criteria and timeline, etc. And the second meeting, actually before the board committee meeting for governance and policy, the parents in that advisory reacted to the proposal. And then I took those concerns and questions to the Governance and Policy Committee right afterwards. And so we'll meet again in the meantime, and several of the members of that advisory were here tonight and heard the input of others, and we'll talk about that.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just
Mark?
a couple of things, Dan. Thank you. A couple of observations that I think are hopefully obvious. One is that we probably have to do something. We've got some enrollment pressure on Rivercrest here, and I think to ignore it would probably be irresponsible. And using Rock as our next closest contiguous elementary school is where the adjustment should be made. So what we need to talk about is, I guess, where that boundary change is going to be made. And I guess I'm just going to simplify this and ask just really one question, because I think really the most important matter here is seeing if we can somehow keep the families together. I really felt that there was a real concern with splitting the siblings. Understandable. And so my question just simply, is it possible to buy enough time by, in addition to grandfathering in current Rivercrest students, if we also grandfather in their siblings? Now, obviously anybody new moving in has to go to EP Rock. Now, I don't know if that buys enough time. Obviously, that's going to, it's not going to be the pressure reliever that the other plan would be, but I would like to know if that's possible, because if it would be close, then I think it's something we should look at.
Okay. So maybe that's another option for Nancy and Mary to take a look at. So do you have some direction from the board now in terms of?
I do. I just wanted to know from Tom if I addressed your question at all. I wondered if I had.
I think you have.
Okay.
Were those parents supportive of the proposal, or would you assess it as being?
Well, I think they realized the need. I'm guessing, and heard that they realized what the need was. But the issues that came out were the same issues that you heard tonight, were the issues of siblings, and they were concerned about that. And the issue of so soon, they really stressed that, and hopefully looking for long-term solutions. So very helpful. It's very helpful to have parent advisory. It was extremely helpful to have the parents advise on the larger boundary changes. They were critical, and critical to the meetings that we had throughout the district.
Dan, can I just make another comment? I just want to say that this administration has agonized about this. This is not something that's been taken lightly, and it's not a proposal that has come to us as a quick solution or as a convenient solution. And we do recognize that. I personally do recognize that, and the board too has really not taken this lightly. And I want to say thank you to the administration for all of the hard work and all of the really tough things that you've had to battle through to come to a proposal. And I know for a fact that you did not put children second in this. I know that for a fact. Your hearts are so with the kids in our district. And so I appreciate that you have really done the hard work, and now that we come to making a decision about a proposal, really we've gotten off easier. Thanks.
Okay.
Can I pile on Mr. Kaiserschott?
Sure, and then I think we're going to bring it to a close and move on, but go ahead.
I just want to take that thought a little bit more about having another option. I don't think we should. I was asking some questions in my that would help us lead to another alternative, because what I don't want to do is say this is the only option, and because I don't think doing nothing is the right result either. So what I would say is if we try to do an option where we're keeping siblings together and kind of grandfathering the current attendees of Rivercrest, I'd like to put everything back on the and come up with maybe another creative way to solve that. And I put some things in here that may help us in that option. So,
Mary, Jim.
I appreciate everybody's consideration. Certainly, we had parents who are very invested in the outcome of the board's deliberation and decision making. And I just want to promise to them that we will continue to communicate to you everything that we receive from them in regard to comments. We are taking their questions, and when we receive them multiple times, we're putting them up on the website. And so we'll continue to do that as well as investigating your questions. And we will communicate with you as we develop those answers to make sure that they are right in line with what you're looking for. And then maybe there'll be some things you think of between now and the next board meeting. And I encourage you to just communicate with myself or Nancy so that we know anything else that we can pursue to prepare you for your decision making.
Thanks, Mary, and Nancy. Thank you, Tracy. Thanks for your work on this. Certainly not an easy situation or issue for us to deal with as it was in the past, but that's what we're here for. We have to deal with it. So, and thanks to the parents and everyone that came out to speak to this issue as well. With that, we'll move on to the final report here in consideration of WASB resolutions. As you all know, we have the convention coming up next week down in Milwaukee. What you have in your board packet are a number of resolutions, and thanks to Mary and whoever put this together, sort of the directors that put together these, some of the highlighted resolutions. What we need to do is provide our delegates, Lynn and Barb, who are going to be representing the district down in Milwaukee, some guidance on these resolutions. So hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look at these. Anyone have any comments or wish to speak to any one of these resolutions? Otherwise, our delegates will probably use this as a guide as they're down there.
I would like to speak to the FIED one that's the additional, just because it's something that the board has been interested in the past. We have as well. And that is one that was not accepted or moved forward as a resolution and would take, is it 2/3 vote? I don't know where that is in front of me.
Of the very last page, the one that's in a different form?
Yes, to bring to the full assembly. And essentially this is Beloit's proposal that students who participate in high school sports would be able to receive credit for that. And I know the board in the past has been supportive, but Sandy did some research, I think a couple years ago, about that and contacted the DPI. And what they told us was we had to have licensed FIED teachers teaching FIED. Well, not all of our coaches are licensed FIED teachers, so that eliminates that for us. And as you know, 1.5 credits of high school physical education is required by the state for graduation. So we felt that there was nothing we could do. The information we received from WASB kind of refuted that and said that, there was some flexibility by districts. When I called WASB to say that wasn't the story that we received, they did send us some other information, but it was really about online FIED courses. And online FIED courses don't become a problem because they can be taught by a licensed FIED teacher. And that really wasn't our question. So again, we believe that the law has to be changed, and this has to be supported to have this flexibility for us to move forward and allow our athletes to get credit for physical education. So we would just like you to have consensus that Lynn supports this and, if possible, helps to bring it forward.
This is exciting. I've wanted us to be able to do this. We've talked about this for such a long time. I am really excited to support this.
Just one question, just a comment. Sure. So online physical education courses are recognized. So I could eat a chocolate bar and have a Coke while I'm doing online education. But if I'm wrestling, I don't get credit.
Yes, but the online courses could be of higher quality than that.
Yeah.
Brian, even if you play Wii, you get credit. So.
We fit.
So Lynn, you're going to get that done for for us?
And thanks, Lynn and Barb, for serving as our delegates in Milwaukee.
If I could, Dan, just a real quick comment. First, I concur with the administration recommendation on these WASB proposed resolutions, including the credit for participation in athletics. I think it's long overdue, and I share Cindy's enthusiasm for that. The other comment I want to make is just we're looking through these, and Resolution 093, Special Education Revenue Limit Exemption, 094, Fuel and Heating Cost Revenue Limit Exemption, 05, Capital Maintenance Expense Revenue Limit Exemption, et cetera, et cetera. I think just demonstrates we need to tackle the issue of financing education here in the state of Wisconsin. This is a messy and I think a ridiculous way to take care of your funding, and this is, I think, just demonstrated. Districts are struggling, and I understand the rationale for this. I don't mean that, but what I mean is I think it points out the inherent flaws we have in financing our education, and the big picture should be tackled rather than this kind of Mickey Mouse way. I'm done.
Mr. President.
Okay.
I do have one question on the proposal for the credit for extracurricular sports, and that was, this may be a question for Mary or Sandy, do we have sports that our students participate in an extracurricular way that have a fee associated with them, so that students would have to have the financial wherewithal to participate?
Yes, there is a student athletic fee, but I know Mr. Lucas has supported students who don't have the means to pay that fee.
So my concern would be is if there was a fee that we couldn't find a way to finance for students who otherwise could participate, then this creates essentially the potential for a two-tier education system. So that would be my only cautionary note on this.
Okay, good point. We'll move on to the action items, topics for action, and I know our auditors have been waiting patiently out there, so the financial audit report. Tim, are you going to lead us in that? Thanks.
Yes, thank you. If you turn to page 23 and 24 of your board packet, the independent auditor's report on the school district's financial statements is there, and the district received an unqualified opinion, which is really the best, highest opinion you can receive on your financial statements. And we have tonight Tom Cordes and Steve Tracy from the auditing firm of Larson Allen, and I think Tom is going to speak a little bit to the audit. So Tom, if you want to step up here.
Good evening. We met last week with Finance Committee to go over the audit report. I think tonight I'll just go over some key numbers, starting with your general fund. Again, your general fund is your main operating fund. Anything that's not required to be accounted for in another fund is accounted for in the general fund. For the year, your general fund decreased approximately $2,400,000, or 13.4% of your fund balance. Now, that was a planned decrease as you used fund balance to fund current year expenditures. Ending fund balance, just over $15,700,000, or approximately 31% of budgeted expenditures. For the year, actual revenues exceeded budget by 0.1%. Actual expenditures and transfers out under budget by approximately 3.2%. Special ed fund, again, special ed fund, all your special ed costs are recorded in your special ed fund, funded with state and federal aid. What isn't funded by those two sources is funded with a transfer from the general fund. For the year, that transfer was just over close to $4,700,000, up only approximately $6,000 over the year before. Debt service fund, again, principal and interest in your debt service, or on your district's debt service is funded through that fund. Decrease for the year of just over $9 million. Now, that was because in 2006-07, you borrowed money to refinance one of your debt issues. That refinancing happened in 07-08. Ending fund balance in that fund, close to $4 million. Again, that's money set aside to fund your fall debt service payments. The other major fund is your capital projects fund. Funds part of the cost of this Rivercrest. Ending fund balance there, just over $2,300,000. That available to complete this project. Now we're talking as of 6/30/08. Obviously, costs incurred in July and August, so a good portion of that's already been used up. Other items of interest: federal aid. Approximately 14 programs received close to $1.6 million in federal aid, but that represents approximately only 2.7% of district-wide revenues, up approximately $200,000 over last year. State aid for the year, close to $27 million in state aid, up approximately $1.9 million over the year before, represents approximately 46% of total district-wide revenues. The other major revenue source, obviously, is property taxes. For the year, close to $25 million, up approximately $600,000 over last year, represents approximately 43% of total district-wide revenues. Only one finding, same finding as last year. We comment on the fact that your financial statements are prepared by us, considered a significant deficiency, so we have to comment on it. We prepare our financial statements for all our clients. Never ran into a client yet where we don't prepare the financial statements, so that's not an uncommon comment. Not that you don't have the expertise to do that. It's a time-consuming process, so that's why you hire us to do that. And that's kind of the summary of what we went over at finance.
Okay.
If anybody's got any questions.
Thanks, Tom. Any questions for Tom or Tim regarding the financials? You've all received the financial statements and supplementary information report, which is fairly comprehensive. So certainly, if you don't have questions now, either Tim or I'm sure we could work through Tim to get to Tom if there are any questions that board members have. This did come before the Finance Committee, and we had a very thorough review of the financials during that committee meeting this past week.
Finance Committee went through the statement with Tom and Steve in some detail. So.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
I'll entertain, I guess, at this point, the approval of the financial audit report as presented.
Mr. President, I move the approval of the financial statements and supplementary information from the audit report year ended June 30th, 2008.
Second.
Thanks, Tom. Motion by Tom and second by Cindy. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's approved. Move on to the paperless board meetings. Tim, are you going to cover that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. If we turn to page 25, your board packet, we have the Diligent Board Book Service Agreement, and that is for the paperless board meetings. And you had a presentation of that software last month, and so we have had this reviewed by legal counsel, and we've made a few revisions to it, mainly in the guts of the agreement. And I guess I'd probably call your attention to page 33 or page 9 of the contract itself. And as you recall, as we talked about pricing, certainly we went through a pretty thorough review of various vendors, and then we went back and we were able to obtain some discount pricing. Nancy Toll worked on this, and with a commitment of a 3-year contract. And so we're looking at a total that we would pay this year of $23,865 for the 3 years. And if you, I'd also call your attention to page 11 of the contract, or page 35 of your board book. And it just talks a little bit about the implementation plan, being phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is working with the administrators and supervisors who will use this, and really about a month-long process. And then phase 2 is working with the board on the training of the software. So, any questions?
Tim, has there been any calculation of what kind of savings there might be as a result of going paperless?
We did look at some calculations. I think in terms of putting a true dollar amount on, it was a little bit difficult, but I think we came up with I don't remember exactly what the number was. Mary, do you?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Just happen to have that one
That's
here.
good.
But it is about $2,400 per year.
Savings? And you figured the cost, the administrative cost of assembling all the materials, so the labor component is probably the most important thing we're saving. If you look at this one meeting here, look at the amount of books and binders we have just to run this meeting.
Well, it's estimated.
Yeah.
And, just looking at an average over the year. So we really haven't tracked it all year long, so it could certainly be higher than that. But this was an estimate figured out with delivery to the board. It was Diane's time to work on the board packs. It was the duplication time, transportation, bringing delivery of those materials, the materials themselves. Let's see, anything else? Postage.
I think it's going to create some efficiencies which we can't really put a dollar amount to, and it's going to create. It certainly will create and help communication-wise with the board administration.
Just
as far
note,
as access to
a
those
few of the
materials.
questions I asked tonight, we could just searched right in if we had that, we could just search online and probably get some of those answers, right, without having to have Nancy go back now and spend her time to go research some of that, right? So.
Yep. Tim, the total cost again is that the $23,000?
Right. Well, the cost. If you go back to page 9 or 33, there's an annual licensing fee, and that's $7,955, and that would be the ongoing cost. And then there's a one-time setup and installation and training fee of $2,024. But we're obtaining those discounts by entering into the 3-year contract and paying the cost this year. So annually, the licensing fee would be $79.55.
So the $23,865, Tim, is really the annual fee times 3. Right. The $23,865 would increase by the $2,000 upfront installation fee, if I'm doing the math right. Correct. So we're really talking about almost a $26,000 investment over that 3-year span of time, including the installation fee.
That's right.
Tim, can you comment on the budget impact of this, how this has been allocated in the budget?
We do have some areas that we can reallocate dollars to make the payment for this year, to obtain the discount pricing.
Where are you reallocating from?
We've got about 3 different areas. Mary has
part is the superintendent's budget and the board's budget.
Okay.
Those would be the 2 main areas, right?
I do want to add that one additional cost that isn't reflected in this is the cost of laptops for any of the board members that don't have their own And at this point, it looks like we need to purchase one laptop for the board members, but that could change at any time, depending upon the board composition or your own equipment. And we will have some shuffling of laptops ourselves that we're on a cycle to already purchase some of those that will be included for administration.
I did have one additional question, which I assume you've already answered internally within the district, which is Nancy and her team have the capacity to manage the software, at least to the extent we would need IT resources. That's something they can handle?
Well, it's a web-based, and so our support will be coming from Diligent on this.
I'm thinking about more loading content. Who would do that?
We each would load content. Diane would load the primary, but each of us have access, which we don't currently have. We have to give it to Diane, and Diane has to do it. So it will save time on her part to be able to, instead of me emailing an attachment to Diane, who now needs to prepare it for the board pack, I can put it into the system myself.
I was at the last board meeting when they were showing it, and Nancy Toll was here, and I asked that question, and she was over there furiously nodding yes. So I would take that as an answer to that question.
Well, she is very supportive of this, and it certainly aligns with our technology plan. So it aligns with HSD 2025 and our technology plan.
Okay. Brian.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to move to approve the Diligent board book.
We have a motion by Brian.
Second.
Second by Lynn. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's approved.
I want to just make a couple comments. We will move forward with this. It might not be the speed we might want, but because I think our primary emphasis is going to be on boundary adjustments and obtaining information for you there in some other areas. But we will be moving forward as soon as we can and start planning for this.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to other topics for action. We have consent items, personnel expenditures, occupational therapy, service contracts, school calendars, policy 2230, and CISA 11 shared services contract. I'll entertain a motion for those consent items. If someone has a total expenditure amount, be helpful.
Mr. President, I move to approve the consent items, including a motion to move that the Director of Financial Services be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $2,269,245.61, and this is excluding the YCAMP expenditure.
Thank you, Cindy. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Brian. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's approved. The next item is the expenditures to the YCAMP, and Mr. Holland?
Yeah, this is the point in which I'll step out to avoid any appearance of conflict of interest.
Okay. Tom Holland will be stepping out shortly here.
Mr. President, I move that the Director of Financial Services be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $15,275.63 to the YCAMP in St. Croix.
Okay, Cindy has a motion.
Second.
Second by Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's approved. Tom Holland is coming back in. Okay, committee reports. Barb, Learning and Program Development.
The Learning and Program Development Committee met on December 18th, and we spent a fair amount of our time with an update by Sandy on the work that's currently being done related to our graduate learner outcome of environmental sustainability. And Sandy and some of the others had gone to another school to look at what they were doing. And it turns out that many of the things that this other school had talked about in terms of establishing environmental sustainability as an area of curriculum are things that we're already working on, things like the Environmental Education Committee, a recycling program which we've started. They did Sandy talked a little bit about the possibility of establishing a junior naturalist program. We have our young naturalist program here at Hudson Middle School, potentially creating a partnership with the UW River Falls. And we have an outdoor learning area. We do have our forest that we're working on, so there's a lot of stuff underway. We also got an update on the possibility of, through the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, potentially doing some professional exchange with teachers in other countries coming here, or perhaps us going there, and we'll continue to talk about that. And then we spent some time talking about the possibility of subscribing to a service that is referred to as a clearinghouse. The name of this particular one was a student tracker, which essentially allows us to take data of our students and acquire information about their enrollment and ultimately graduation at the college or post-secondary level, so that we know what's happening to our students after they graduate from Hudson High School. We didn't make any decisions on that yet, but we have that on our open tickler file to talk about again later this fall.
Thank you, Barb. Any questions for Barb and her committee? If not, we'll move on to Finance Committee. Brian?
Just a quick update. We met on the 5th of Jan. We reviewed the audit report in detail and had discussions on that. Nothing really to report on that other than what was reported on tonight. The second thing we talked about was just we had a brief conversation on it, ensure that where it makes sense, we're consolidating our purchasing. So if we're buying lots of paper, instead of buying lots of paper in 5 different locations in elementary schools, is there some benefit of consolidating those purchases so we have a higher volume? We talked a little bit about that, and where it makes sense, where it doesn't make sense. So we discussed that, and then finally we have our short-term cash or short-term assets that we have in different financial institutions. We took this as an opportunity to kind of review the process by which we select those financial institutions to make sure that they're viable and organizations. So right now, Tim Erickson's actually undergoing a process by which we choose our depositories, and so we review that. And then finally, we met in closed sessions to talk about potential financial agreements. So, any questions?
Any questions for Brian? Thanks, Brian, and work of the committee. I'll speak briefly to the Governance and Policy Committee. We also met, and many of the items that we covered were brought up tonight regarding the boundary adjustment. We had a discussion about how we were going to handle the community listening session, and then a couple items. One was the board professional development, implementing the HSD 2025 strategic plan, and our plans is to work together with Barb's committee, the Learning and Program Development Committee, in sort of developing a plan for which board members would become better apprised and involved in the strategic planning process. And then we also talked about one of the consent items that we approved was the evaluation of the superintendent and that review process. And we already had a process in place, but this further refines and I think improves upon what we had for superintendent review. Any questions for me and the committee? Okay. Next item, citizens' request to speak. I don't believe we have anything, do we, Diane? And if not, I guess
Move to adjourn.
I'll entertain it.
Second.
Motion by Brian, a second by Barb.
Cindy.
Oh, Cindy, excuse me. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's approved. Thanks, everyone.